make sure that that's on, right? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Close all the doors of the office. Hey everyone. Hi all my Facebook friends. Let's see, let's start live video now. There we go. And hi everyone over here at TravisFoxMembers.com. Welcome to the weekly broadcast. Got a little music in the background. Hope you don't mind. Why would you? It's good stuff. Anyway, I want to shout out to our good friends at Travis Matthews. Thank you as always. We always love the shirts for all the years that we've been involved with you in the golf game. And to Brent Coca for last week. As you know, many of you should know, we didn't do last week's broadcast for a couple of reasons. So one, allow me to introduce why. One, obviously, was Father's Day. As many of you know, I'm a three-time father and a grandfather, so of course I chose to spend the day with my family. I hope you did as well. So happy belated Father's Day and Grandfather's Day to all of you. Those of you on Instagram probably saw our message out to all of our fathers and grandfathers. So once again, thank you. Facebook friends, as always, because you can check us out always on Instagram and Facebook Live. And of course, the full and deeper broadcast with all of the additional bonus features goes at TravisFoxMembers.com. So we did Father's Day last weekend, and of course the US Open, as many of you know, that's always a special time for me because, as you know, I liked golf for many, many years. Long story long, so I watched the US Open, got to hang out with the family. But also, too, I just got back to Las Vegas late last night, somewhere around 1 a.m. 1 a.m. my time. That's Pacific time. And I spent a week in shamanic meditation with my shaman and opening up my heart space and as expanding my awareness. So I spent that week doing that, and that really kind of changed how we were going to approach last week and more importantly, how we're going to approach today. So part of what we're doing, hold on a second. That's a really powerful song. What we're going to do differently is I normally have my script of what I'm going to do or what I'm going to say and how I'm going to talk to you guys and what we're going to talk to me about. Thank you, Mr. Hooligan. We may follow you. We'll check you out. Thanks for putting that in there. But also, too, want to shout out a couple of things. Like I said, last week was really, really powerful for expanding heart awareness. So what is this week going to be about? Well, let me tell you what it's not going to be about. It's not going to be scripted. It's not going to be based on like I normally do where I've got my weekly plan where we're going to talk about what the conscious mind does and what the subconscious mind does. We're not going to do that. We're going to make crap up. You're welcome, brother. Let me know. If you follow us, we'll probably follow you back, just to FYI. Anyway, but thanks for joining. Anyway, to all of our friends over who just completed Ramadan, many of you know who we are, especially over our good friends over in Turkey and Istanbul and Antalya and Bodrum. I know that you completed that month-long journey. That's a long journey to complete, right? So, by the way, happy for that being over. So enjoy all the experiences that can go along. Thank you for saying they're inspirational. I appreciate that, brother. It's very kind. Anyway, so this week, what I want to talk to you guys about, and more importantly, it's more of a sharing this week. This week isn't going to come from a place of, Dr. Fox teaching architect of being or working on whatever the mind is, conscious and subconscious, or more importantly, the architecture, which is, of course, your heart, as all of you know. Most of it's going to be about, well, what's kind of important. So this has been a really interesting journey for me this week because, as you know, every 6 or 8 weeks after I come off the road, I always check in and I always go back to my own journey because, again, I'm a firm believer you can't invite other people to experience in themselves what you yourself haven't experienced. And in a really common vernacular, a real fancy way of saying, you can't teach what you don't know. Now, there's a couple things that kind of came to my mind, and I was watching this over the weekend, and the last week really, was how come so many people out there, especially in Instagram or Facebook marketing, and maybe somebody can answer for this me because I actually don't know. Everyone keeps saying, hey, I can teach you how to make a six-figure income. I can teach you how to make a six-figure income. And money became the priority. Now, I'm not saying money doesn't have a value, but it does. Okay, I get that. But what's more important than that? Well, if you really take the time to answer that question, actually breathe it in, you will come to the realization that the only thing that is interesting in this lifetime is learning your authentic self. And while you can say, well, I need money to go do that. I'm like, well, do you? In fact, I think we've all heard, and somewhere along the line we chose to forget, we chose to not believe, we chose to kind of like check out, is to say that money or the pursuit of money or all the things I need to acquire, houses, cars, husbands, wives, kids, dogs, cats, commonly called responsibility of ego, that they cost money. Okay, they do. I won't doubt that. But here's what's more interesting about that. The things that you actually really are going to be authentically wanting to experience rarely cost anything except for one of the most valuable assets that you came into this world already possessing in a plethora of, right? And of course, you're going to ask me, well, Doc, what is that? Time. The most valuable asset you have is time, right? And here's the funny thing about time. We were really flippantly dangerous with it. And what do I mean by flippantly dangerous? What I mean is, well, we tend not to really take care of it. We spend time doing a bunch of mindless shit, right? And then we wonder, gee, why don't I feel fulfilled? Or, gee, why don't I have the relationship I want? And of course, I'm gonna go on Instagram and I'm gonna tell everybody I make 6 figures a year. Okay, great, you make 6 figures a year. By the way, all of my Instagram marketers out there, if any of you are actually making 6 figures a year, besides a Ty Lopez or maybe a Grant Cardone or maybe a Gary Vee, a Vanderchuck, those guys are really obviously doing it. And I'm sure there are more and more. And I don't mean this in an accusatory way. I mean it in a curious way. If everyone's making the 6 figures a year, who's buying all this stuff? Don't know. So a lot of people ask, well, Travis, what is architecting about and what is the experience? Well, for 20 years, I was an quote-unquote expert in the mind, okay? Meaning conscious mind, subconscious mind, and everything from the neck up, is controlled, the neck down. And I really kind of had my model backwards, as probably many of us do, because we're indoctrinated in thought processing that mind control and thought process and positive mental attitude, a la Norman Vincent Peale, a great giant as well, or the rah-rah experience, I got excited, yeah, go good, all that stuff, and that's really great, except for here's one challenge. The funny thing about mind is, and I'm just really interested to see how many of you can relate to this, or more importantly, are willing to relate to this. Let me ask you this. How can you create from your mind if you've already experienced it? So let me put this in a different way. How can you create from your mind if you already experienced it? You can't create from your mind if you already experienced it, because here's why. The truth is, you're creating from a memory, from a belief structure, from a habit, from a value system, from an action system that you've already done. All you're doing is taking a past memory from your mind, and you're flipping it forward and putting it right in front of you, and then you're repeating it again, only here's the difference. You've just changed the environmental wrapper, which is a really fancy way of saying all you did was change the situation. So for example, it could be in Las Vegas one day, it could be in Iceland the next, it could be in Brazil the next. It's just the environment that's changed, but you're still recreating the same experience, which then ultimately will lead you to this question. And this one's a dinger, and this one happened for me this week where I really dug in, and I'm so grateful for my meditation team that I get to be around. We call it the round table, but it really is. And it is a group of very consciously recalled people who have really focused and said the greatest thing that we need to work on in this lifetime, of course, is our authentic self. Because what else really is there? Everything else is just a freaking experience, right? I mean, okay, and that's great. Hold on a second. Music's really cranky today. And that's okay that it's, a story, but that's good. We won't mind stories. Stories are cool, but here's the interesting thing about all of that is a story will repeat itself. So if you've ever had the relationships happen over and over again, and you've ever had, let's say, business experiences happen over and over again, and you keep finding the same dynamics in the people that you're talking to, maybe you'll start to realize that, hey, you're creating from mind, which begets the really interesting question. And I'm not going to answer it for you, because who the hell am I to answer anything? Because anybody out there who tells you have the answers, let's be honest, guys, they're just full of shit. And I'm calling you all out. All of you out there that say that you've got the spiritual answers is just a load of horse shit. And that means everybody across the board, because a truly great, recalled, enlightened, conscious being will never answer the question for you. What they'll really do is they'll ask you kick-ass questions that allow the true part of you to wake up and answer from a truth. You see, because the truth is, you can't argue with truth. You just feel it, right? You can argue with bullshit. We all do. Hell, we argue in our own mind, much less do we argue externally. But here's the more interesting part. We actually don't create from our mind. Now, I know that's going to sound really weird to you, and all of you are going to go, no way, what are you talking about? Everything's about mind control. I got to understand mind, and I got to control my mind. And of course, let me ask you this question, sidebar. How many of you actually really control your mind? I mean, let's be honest. How many thoughts have you had right here, right now, since we've been doing this broadcast all of literally 12 minutes into it, and how many thoughts have you already had that had absolutely nothing to do with what we're discussing? More importantly, here's an even deeper question. Where the hell did those thoughts come from? Because if you're the one controlling your mind, you shouldn't have a random thought. You should never be out of control. Hell, for that matter, you should never frickin' daydream. So that means there's a part of us that something else is going on that's beyond or below or unaware, whichever word you want to choose. I'm okay with all of the above. That is not in our conscious awareness. Now, in the common vernacular, we call this, we call this the subconscious or the unconscious, the unaware part of our awareness, which is kind of oxymoronic, the unaware part of our awareness. Okay, but you know, there's a funny thing, and I've said this for years, especially as of late. For those of you who are just with me in Istanbul and Antalya, a lot of you know that I do a lot of shamanic work, I do a lot of energy work, and people say, well, I'm a healer. And you know, the funny truth is I'm not a healer, guys, gals, people, Facebook, Instagram, member site. I'm not a healer. What I do is I hold a space and a safety net where you can heal yourself, okay? Because the truth is, and we all know this here, we all know it here, right? We all know that the answers are inside, but we are so scared to death to go inside because, you know, we go inside, we go, well, I don't want to hurt, I don't want to re-experience that, you know, I don't want to open my heart because, oh shit, I'll be vulnerable, people will find out I'm messed up. By the way, we all know you're messed up and we all are messed up, so welcome to the frickin' club. So let's just cover that crap right now, okay? And we start creating these experiences over and over and over and over and over and over again, but we're creating from our mind, which if you really, really think about it, the best way to describe that is if you've ever watched a movie and then you turn around and watch it again, that's kind of like what we're doing. You're watching a rerun because you've already done it in your lifetime, right? You've already experienced it, what it is. And so when we get frustrated, here's the best part. That's our ego piling on top of us going, see, you keep doing it over and over and over again. And yet, ironically, it's the same egoic mind that's telling us to replay it over and over again. Why? Because it keeps us from the one original place we can be. And this is where architect of being and your being comes in, because this is the only part of you that is going to survive this thing called life. So if you can zoom and come all the way back from this space and go, hey guys, here's a really interesting way of saying, hey, if we can look at the end game of life, and I say game is a metaphoric, I don't mean it literal, so don't freak out when I say game, people. But if you really can step back and look at it, everything you're looking at, even this broadcast, everything in your environment, everything around you from a certain point of view of the full zoom out is the biggest virtual reality experience we've ever seen. And I don't mean the virtual reality where you put the goggles on and you look around and you play a video game, although that's kind of a cool way to look at it, that if you look through your own eyeballs, look around, you're playing a virtual reality game. Why? Here's why, kids. Suck it up. Deal with it, breathe it in, own it, knock off the bullshit, and let's get really, really, really crystal clear of what's going on. Here's the ultimate truth. It is the only noble truth I've found traveling all around the world, and I have traveled all around the world to places people haven't thought of yet. Are there more to go? Of course, that's still part of my journey. But 46 years into this, I can concretely tell you there's only one noble truth, and that one noble truth is this. We all know that nobody gets out of this life alive, meaning this physical body, your physical body, and members, your physical bodies, will one day eventually terminate. We all know it, we all know it, we all know it. We do everything we can to deny it. See, because your hypnotist, your mind, is the most powerful hypnotist on the planet. A lot of people used to say, hey doc, you're the greatest hypnotist I've ever seen. Thank you. Very kind for the compliment. But the truth is, as I announced a couple weeks ago in Antalya to our good friends over at Sonagovan and the festival retreat, the best hypnotist in the room isn't me. Hell, I used to think I was the best hypnotist, which is one of the greatest illusions I ever gave myself. The truth is the best hypnotist in the room is you. And you, and you, and all of us. Because we walk around every day hypnotizing ourselves into a distractionary effect that says, you know what? I'm not going to think about the end game because right now I've got plenty of time. Okay, I want any of you right now on Instagram or Facebook or on the member site, I want all of you right now in some form or other, I want you to tell me how you can guarantee that you have plenty of time. Because if you can, then brother or sister, you need to unveil yourself as the new deity on the planet, because the truth is none of us have any clue about what time really means. But we arrogantly, egoically, and more importantly, hypnotically place ourselves into the illusionary trance that we've got plenty of time. And that one day, after we get all the money we want, and we've slept with all the people we want to sleep with, and we've traveled on all the boats and all the cars, and we've seen everything there is to see on Earth, which, by the way, is the biggest illusion of them all, then we'll focus on that which we know is important, which is our self-awareness. See, I have a real challenge, and I'm going to invite you to look at this from a different point of view. You can always go back to what you were before this broadcast, but for now, let's agree on this. This whole thing of self-development is a really kind of a misnomer, because how do you develop what it already is? The only thing we're tending to develop, believe it or not, is this. We're developing the hypnotic illusion. We're becoming master hypnotists, but not to anyone else, to ourselves. So this week, as we go through this journey together, a couple of questions I'd like you just to look at for yourself. I don't have the answers for you. My job as the architect is to help architect the framework for your awareness of your own architect of being, your architect, to come out and to become really crystal clear that your hypnotist, mind, ego, is the one that has been screwing with you all along. And the real disconnect that we're looking for isn't a disconnect from everything out here per se, it's the disconnect from here to here, meaning that what we do is we take the information in, we push it in, and we push it down, and we stuff our emotions down, we stuff our feelings down, we stuff everything down until one day it explodes, commonly called a vent, or an argument, or losing your mind, or going bananas, whatever the hell it is, okay? However you want to call it. So, it's the model of reconnecting this way. So everything comes from here. That's why you see the Architect of Being logo is like this, because it comes from inside out, okay? It comes from here first, but we have to be willing to go down in here and look at it. Now the scary part of that is sometimes things come up. And what you really begin to find out is this hypnotist is so powerful that it's had programs running since you can remember. Now some of those programs, in fact most of them, were not put there by you. And this is where the comment comes, have you ever had an original thought of your own? And I don't mean thought here, I mean thought here that came up from your heart, came into your subconscious, became into your conscious awareness, and then you project it out into the world. If you're like most, and you're really, really willing to be honest with yourself, chances are you haven't. And that's the invitation. Would you like to? There's only one way that I've found so far that actually makes any sense. Of all the education I've had, and you can see all the degrees I have behind me, and guess what? They don't mean shit. I've had to unwind my mind for the last literally 10 years to come back to the awareness of truth. Because again, you can't argue with truth because you just feel it. It's authentic. You know it. You know what it feels like. You can argue with this commonly called the BS, right? Which is mind. Okay, because mind's creating mind, mind knows mind. The interesting part about having an original thought is the truth being, if it is a thought, there's a high degree of probability you've already experienced it. Which means you're not the one thinking the thought. It comes from somewhere freaking else, right? It comes from here. And if further yet, this is where it really is gonna bake your freaking noodle. So hold on for the ride, kids, because we're going down the rabbit hole. We're taking the red pill. Here's the deal. Mom, dad, perhaps you call it religion, state where you grew up in, environmental push thought process, schooling for the first pretty much 20 years of your life is where the base plate of all the thoughts you're thinking right now and the actions you're doing right now and the things that you hold valuable right now are probably coming from. Now, when you first hear that, if you're like most, and just like me, you're gonna go, get the hell out of here. I'm an adult, I'm an accomplished person, I've got these degrees, I've got this job, I'm a self-sustaining person, I take care of myself, and blah, 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 blah. If you're all that in a bag of chips, Mr. Member, Mr. and Mrs. Instagram, Mr. and Mrs. Facebook, if you're all that in a bag of chips and you're so concluded there, how come you're still running around searching externally, meaning outside your person, for this thing or experience or person that's going to make you happy? Yeah, that one really bothered me too. And I really spent this last week expanding on, wait a minute, what is the end game? Well, the end game is we know nobody gets out of this life alive. Cool. Okay, so we already know that. So if we know it's going to end, who then are we seeking to impress? Because every one of us ends up the exact same way, regardless of how much money you make, how beautiful or non-beautiful you think you are, how many cars you've owned, how many times you've traveled around this globe. Everyone leaves the same, which means everyone comes in the same. It's how you choose to express yourself from here, during your time here, and service of others. And I don't mean this false humility of, oh, I'm going to go serve people because that makes me feel really vindicated and play this kind of victim martyr role thingy. What I'm talking about is serving others by being here, your authentic self. And doing that from a place of actual fearlessness, which sometimes is difficult because our ego says, hey, by the way, Instagram followers, if you follow this Dr. Travis Fox guy, he's going to invite you to go, it doesn't matter what other people think. And I don't mean that from a malicious or an angry point of view. And members, you know this. When I talk every week to you guys, off these and just to us, we talk about who are we really trying to impress. And when you really boil it all the way down, this is where we go back to, I've never had an original thought until I opened my heart and listened to my being without thinking who I am, but feeling who I am. So this goes back to, did I ever have original thought? And when you start peeling back the layers of your own onion, you'll come into an awareness that says, gee, I'm doing this because mom, dad said this, or mom and dad didn't say this, or this is the belief structure I picked up and I adopted and made my own because that's what I thought was, thought being the operative word, thought I heard or what I was supposed to do, or that's how I got approval, or when I did this, I didn't get the approval I was looking for. Then you can add a religious structure in there if you want to. Then you can add a governmental state there if you want to. Where did you grow up in the world? Then you can add your schooling environment, the field of study that you studied. You add all of this stuff, right? And you got a lot of knowledge. But where's the wisdom? Because the true wisdom says, follow your heart, and we all know it. That's not new. That's not a Travis Fox-ism. That's not great. Anybody out there goes, oh, I've got the great thing. I'll follow your heart. Yeah, all horse shit. You already know that because you feel it. The trick is, are you such a good hypnotist and so good at the illusion that you are willing, and more not just willing, quite able to hypnotize yourself to listen to this versus this, because this has so many different personality parts. You've lost count how many you actually have. That says, hey, what will the other people think? You're nuts, you're crazy, you're gonna end up broke, or people are gonna laugh at you, or people are gonna think you're insane, or you know what, you've lost because you changed a relationship, or you decided to change careers, or you said, F it, I'm just gonna grab a backpack and go find out the ultimate truth, because here's another big question for you this week. So there's only 2 this week, guys. I know I normally bombard you with 5 or 6, but this week it's gonna be 2. One is, have you ever had an original thought? Thought meaning from here, and you can slash that word thought, feeling that came from here, that was so outrageous, that was so bodacious, that felt so amazing, that felt so big that your brain actually got scared shitless. If you've had that feeling and you've had that experience, guess what? There's a high degree of probability that's where we need to go. And the psychological pain that you're creating within your own mind from using your own hypnotist and hypnotizing yourself, especially members, you know this, is going to end up with the same story. Now, many of you know I like to tell stories because it's a great way to do metaphors, so I'll give you a quick one that highlights that point. And many of you saw The Matrix, an older movie, but it was a great movie by the Wachowski brothers. Keanu Reeves was in it. Lawrence Fishburne played Morpheus. But there's a scene when Neo's first waking up, right? I won't forget to follow you, brother. Thank you very much. Just I'll make sure I do it right afterwards. Thanks, bro. Thanks, Hooligan. More importantly, so he's in the car, right? And they've got the machine. They're going to pull the bug out of him because he's being tracked by the Matrix, right? He's being put into the hypnosis state. So here's the deal. So he says, hey, I'm going to get out of this car. I don't need this crap. And Trinity grabs his arm and says, Neo, wait. You've been down that road. And the camera snaps over and you see this long road that kind of goes nowhere in the dark and it's raining, which is kind of the symbolism of you've already been through all that shit before. And that's that moment where your heart's saying, go this direction. Stay in the car, Neo. Experience this, even though you have no idea what's going on. You think you do. Think, being the operative word, stay there. Even though everyone's going to think you're insane, the truth is the truth is the truth, and you can feel it. But if you go out of the car and you go down that road and you don't listen to your heart and you allow your hypnotist, your mind, your ego to play with you and tell you all that crap and you choose to fall back into your own trance, no one's doing it to you, no one's doing it because of so-and-so, you're doing it to yourself. That's the one that really sucks to own, by the way, but it's the truth. And when you let go of that judgment of yourself, then you can go, okay, I no longer have to participate with that. And you close the door, you stay in the car, and you follow your heart. Because again, you already know the end game. So if we already know the end game, for all of us, there is not one on this planet that will get off this planet alive. So there's a really cool freedom in knowing that you can experience it from that point of view, that it's going to end and you want to experience it fully and follow your heart. This is the awareness. It's not a development. You don't need to develop your heart. It's already freaking there. Just listen. Shut the hell up. Shut all the way up, as a good friend of mine, Sage Sal, likes to say, who's a wonderful sage, says, shut the hell all the way up. Stop listening to all the personality parts and feel it. And when you feel what your heart says to do, you do it, okay? Despite what your head says, because this is all an illusion, because it's going to end too. So why listen to something that's terminal? Listen to something that came in eternal that is going to leave eternal. So, we know the end game. What is the big feeling you've had this last week that is so big, so outrageous, so bodacious that it just feels so good, but it scares the shit out of you at the same time? Write it down. We'll talk about it next week, or you can direct message me here on Instagram. Obviously, you can email me, of course. What's the word I'm looking for? Over here on Facebook. Certainly just checking some of these people over here. There we go. Thanks, guys. And of course, you can always email me. My direct email, it's out there in the wide open. It's travis@travisfox.net. So you can email me these questions. And if you'd like to go further, and here's the shameless plug, guys, and you all know this, so here's the shameless plug. You can go, if you want personal architecting with me directly, I only take 8 clients a month. You can go to travisfox360.com. You get your first session on me for free and see if we're the right fit for each other. And if you want us to help architect your company, which is one of my favorite things to do, you can go to architecting360.com. Same thing. Right there, we only take 10 clients a month, and that's about all we can handle. And that's not a scarcity thing. That's not a takeaway thing. It's not all that bullshit sales. It's just the frickin' truth, okay? That's just enough of me to go around. That's all I can handle. That's all I choose to handle right now. So those are your way you can go further than that. But for now, 1, we already know the end game. 2, what's that thing that's so bodaciously, that feels so good, that's so outrageous, that feels amazing to you, that even your brain can't wrap itself around it and scares the shit out of you? Write it down. We'll talk about it next week. And then 3. And this one's the one you can sit and just kind of meditate on. And by the way, starting this week, I believe it's Wednesday, I've got to check with our president, Robert Lennon, for our new schedule, but we're going to start doing weekly guided hypnosis / meditation / architecting experiences right here on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, for you members only over on travisfoxmembers.com, you guys get all the bonus features that go along with that, which includes your coaching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know the drill. So if you guys want to be a part of that, you can go to check out travisfoxmembers.com. If not, thanks for listening. So then in the meditation this week is, have I ever had an original thought that wasn't from mom or dad, any kind of religious structure you may or may not have? And again, I'm not poo-pooing religions. Don't interpret that. I'm just saying sometimes they do influence how we feel about ourselves. Okay, that's all. What part of the world did you grow up in? And how does that influence you? Commonly called state or government. How did schooling affect you? The choice of schooling that you had. Okay, those kind of things will influence at a belief structure level. Belief structure level. Blah. Okay, and that's commonly called the subconscious. The part that we talked about in the early part of this broadcast, and again, if you've missed this broadcast, you can see it again on travisfoxmembers.com. You guys get to experience it live in real time, but you guys get the replays and the bonus features to go along with that. Okay, but at the end of that, you come to the realization of, hey, I'm aware of my certain things, quote unquote, at least I think I am, but really if I'm going to be honest, and let's really be honest here, 80% of my day is controlled by something else other than my own conscious decision-making power, and we commonly call that the unconscious, which means there are belief structures that are validating what I'm doing at any time. Hey, Adam Sin, Bende, my good friends over there, I love you guys. Teacher, good to see you, brother. Love the pictures, by the way. Great stuff. Keep it coming. Great heart. At any rate, so that means there's an unconscious part of us that is actually creating the experiences. And this is where we go back into the hypnotist again. Okay? So the hypnotist is constantly replaying the belief structures over and over and over and over and over and over and again, which is why you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results and don't get them.